for change. You are currently in transition and preparing to call a pastor. Change is not only coming, it's already here. Even outside the church, we live in a time of change, accelerated change. Although every generation, I think, will tell you at some point they feel like they're living in a time of accelerated change. But through change, we grow and we transform. In accelerated change, the future becomes the present, and then suddenly becomes the past. Change is all about new life, new possibilities, new ways of living together in this world that God created. But because change challenges the status quo, how we do things, the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we interact, with change often comes resistance, and I'm going to say it, conflict. Everybody just take a second. Say the word conflict with me. Conflict. We all survived. It's fine. It's good. And the more we have that thought of what is conflict out there, the healthier we're going to be. The question is, how are we going to respond when conflict arises? That's what we're going to be exploring today for 1 hour. Now, when Pastor Miller was preaching about miracles today, I will count it as a miracle if I am able to do in 1 hour what this workshop is supposed to be, which is a Saturday from 9 to 2. So if I'm talking too fast, please stop me, because my family will tell you I tend to do that. First thing, a little word association. Imagine yourself in a conflict situation or a difficult conversation you need to have or are having. What are the feelings you're experiencing? Then, think for a second and respond, throw out your word associations, finishing conflict is
disagreement.
Disagreement.
Anxiety.
Stressful. Anxiety.
Unavoidable.
Arguing. Unavoidable. Arguing.
Upsetting.
Upsetting.
Confusing.
Confusing.
Frustrating.
Hurtful. Frustrating. Hurtful. Normally I have people writing these things down so you have a visual, so keep those in your mind. Do you sense a pattern? Is there a theme that comes up when we think about conflict?
Negativity.
Negativity. You guys are good. Maybe I can't do this in an hour. Now, picture yourself again in that conflict situation. And this is a spectrum. If you're willing, you're going to get up and move, even though we've only been sitting for a second. Okay, you ready? This is a spectrum of how you feel when dealing with conflict or difficult conversations. On this side, this part of the room, kind of along here, negative, headache, shaking, perspiring, even retching. That's all the way on this side. All the way over here, on the positive side, you're like, yee-haw! Bring on that group of angry people because there's a chance to engage in conflict. That's over here. All right? So, I didn't mean to go this way. Yeah. So, if you're comfortable, you don't have to do this, but if some of you could do it, it would be awesome. And the rest of you, think it through. Take 10 seconds. Put yourself on the spectrum. Super negative, well, maybe not so much, hey, I'll bring it on, and anywhere in between. And place yourselves, don't get too close, keep your masks on, up here. Let's get a little visual of how people feel. And somebody already said it. The first thing we need to learn is to set aside the negative notion of conflict. You know that one? I have yet, except for, I should say, that among the ministries in ways that I serve the New England Synod is as a mediator working in conflict transformation in the New England Synod, and I've worked with the Lombard Mennonite Peace Center, which much of what you're going to hear today comes from that training and experience. So congregations where I've been asked to come, where there is big conflict, and that's why I'm there, they don't say this. But churches in transition, welcome, Deacon Natalie. This is a wonderful place. We have no conflict. And I know what I'm doing here because you're dead. Because nothing obviously is happening. No one's talking, ministry isn't going on, no thoughts, no feelings. Robots, you don't need me. Conflict, well, yeah. To understand it and be comfortable, conflict is normal and it's constructive when we address it with skills that transform conflict. When we use those skills and strategies to address conflict in ways that transform our own functioning and the functioning of a family system. Much of the work I do in conflict transformation is based on all research and study of family systems. And I can share lots of books and stuff with you if you want. But churches are a family system. And understanding how they function helps to create a vital and engaged faith community. What did you learn as children about conflict? Maybe go to your room until Dad gets home. Maybe, Janie, you get to play with the game for 5 minutes. When the timer goes off, Bobby gets it. Maybe, and this is one of my favorites, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. Good thoughts, but what are we actually saying and teaching? How did Mom and Dad deal with conflict with the neighbor? Maybe, come on over for coffee so we can work this out. Oh. Maybe, call the police, get your attorney. The judge becomes Mom and Dad. In any conflict, there are issues and there are people. The goal is to separate the two, to be hard on issues and soft on people. This doesn't come naturally. It's common sense, but it's not taught to us in school, in college. I'm here to tell you, it is not, well, I don't know what Pastor Miller's experience is, but my experience, and part of why I'm doing what I'm doing with Synod, is that it's not taught in seminary. And so for first call theological education, which kind of doesn't really exist right now, that was a track we put in, that workshops I did, because first call pastors were coming out and going, church, and they're mad at me because I didn't do this, or I forgot to do that, or I wore the wrong color stole, and I don't know. So I'm making fun of it, but it's actually a serious thing. So it doesn't come naturally. So we have Two misconceptions. Sometimes we're so soft on people, we don't want to upset them, we want to keep them happy, everybody has an opinion, that we're soft on the issues. One of my favorite stories out of the Mennonite community is a story about an Amish bishop. He was known throughout the community for being a wise bishop, a really good listener. One day he's at home, and the first buggy pulls up, and the farmer gets out, and he says, "Bishop, the neighbor's hay wagon is blocking my lane, and I can't get my cows out for pasture." "You're right." The farmer's like, "I'm right." Off he goes. He's happy. He's satisfied. A few minutes later, the second buggy pulls up. Farmer gets out. "Bishop, the neighbor's cows are all over the place, and I can't get my hay wagon to market." "You're right." "I'm right," but off he goes. Happy man. The bishop's wife had been in the kitchen listening to all this, says to her husband, "They can't both be right." Sometimes, the other misconception is that we're so hard on the issues that we are hard on people. Those people need to be set straight. The dynamics of conflict are an extension of that people versus issues. And there are two ways to look at the problem. One, instead of focusing on the problem that they share, they view the other as the problem. Or people share and are responsible for the problem. Which one do you think maybe happened with the Amish farmers, right? In the dynamics of conflict, what starts out as disagreement is transformed into personal antagonism. Differences over specific problems get translated into charges against another person. Even though a conflict may arise over a single issue, as the conflict intensifies, new and different problems crop up. Talk about the issues is increasingly less specific and more general. And this happens a lot in churches, which we'll talk about triangling in a minute. But oftentimes I'm called in to discuss a situation, and as I hear from people, I find out it's not about this at all. It's about this thing 10 years ago that was never addressed. Communication. Oh, I want to give you an example of one of those, because this is one I hear all the time. Version of it, that last one, but less general. "He missed 2 meetings. He never comes to meetings. He's a terrible team player." Communication is increasingly less direct and less accurate. Increased intensity and emotional involvement correspond with decreased ability to listen and to communicate. That was making sure you were aware. Yeah. People respond, So people respond not to the original issue, but to the most recent response received from the other side. Escalation of anxiety, hostility, personal antagonism leads to a spiral of ever-increasing intensity. If you want to think of one example of how that happens, think of email. Oftentimes congregations put in their covenant of how they live together what email can and cannot be used for. And that's one of my worst things when I actually get called into a mediation. They'll say, "I'm giving you the thread of this email conversation." And I feel like I need a forensic whatever to help me actually find out what's going on there. Communication versus emotional intensity. So let's use a non-church example. Red Sox versus the Yankees. Someone who doesn't care about sports is here. So this, from low to high, ability to communicate accurately and understand. Here, that emotional involvement with what's going on. Low intensity, high. Someone who could really care less about sports, especially baseball, they're A. C, someone who's a total fanatic about sports and about their team. Probably none of you here, but that's C. High involvement, but not able to talk about why or how, or to share their perspective. B, on the other hand, the sweet spot, is someone in the middle who can find appropriate evaluative factors and have an informed conversation. If you really want to know, it's the Chicago Cubs. But anyway, in groups like congregations and neighborhoods, conflict often brings change of social organization. As problems intensify, polarization sets in, and you may not believe me, but if you look back, you'll find instances in life, polarization sets in, and people feel obligated to move into one camp or the other. I dare say we are experiencing that in our nation today. These dynamics together produce outcomes that are destructive to the relationship and rarely resolve the key issues. Extremism replaces moderation, antagonism replaces disagreement, assumption replaces dialogue and listening. Original concerns are lost in the preoccupation of responding to the latest insult, and people are seen as the problem. So, what actually happens? These are the dynamics of the triangle. A has an issue with B, something has said or done, but does not go to B. And this, in the church, it's important to remember this may be an individual, it may be a committee, it may be leadership, it may be staff, but A doesn't go to B. A goes to another person, C. And now, C looks through anxious eyes at B. A's anxiety has now infected C, and C is now brought into the conflict between A and B. And B could very well not even be aware that there's a problem. Each of us, at one time, has been in A, B, or C's shoes. And what we really need to remember in our congregations is to not continue the triangle. I remember that slide so many times. But we need to de-triangle by helping people connect directly. C can be neutral and stay equally connected and have calming influence on the relationship so the triangles don't continue like, what's that kid's game? The triangles. Okay. So, what should happen? I'll give you some options. If you are C, you should A, listen and say something positive about me, listen and say, sounds serious, listen and ask, when are you going to talk to B? D, say, I'm glad I could listen so you had a chance to practice what you're going to say. Anybody want to throw out what they choose? Gold star, all of the above. Now, usually, if we're all day, we do a deep dig-in Bible study, but let's just say, if you have read the Bible, you understand that conflict is all over in the Bible. Just throwing some out, Cain and Abel, Jacob, Esau, Jacob and Isaac, Joseph and his brothers, Moses and God's people, Jesus and the authorities, the church in Acts, the churches Paul writes to. Jesus even puts a place in process, Matthew 18, 15 to 20, showing us that conflict happens. God is with us in conflict and assists us in transformation. The process, guided by the Holy Spirit, starts with us. Direct communication is preferred and use community support. Conflict affects and concerns the wider body of Christ. And one simple way I'll say that is, if you think only St. Paul, and I'm not saying, if ABC Church thinks only ABC Church members know what's going on, that's not correct. The whole town knows what's going on at that place that are supposed to be these good church people, and it's confusing. So far, as I take a breath, any questions, concerns? Beautiful. You can interrupt me anytime. Okay. It's easy to forget that listening must happen for healthy communication. And I have anybody who would love to dig in. I have lots of exercises and role plays that we can do for that. It takes courage to listen rather than react. It takes courage to keep cool when other people are agitated. It takes courage to remain a non-anxious presence when the level of anxiety around you keeps increasing. It takes courage to step back and really listen. So how do you maintain a non-anxious presence? This is another like an hour session, so I'm just going to give you the bullet points. It starts with a listening posture. Release tension. We talk about different postures you can use that allow for listening without resistance. For example, if Rod says something to me, listening? Am I telling him I'm listening?
No.
I'm thinking about what my response is going to be, right? So we do go through that. Lucky for you, we don't have time. To perceive the person's feelings and step into his or her thoughts and perspective and experience. To silence your own sympathy and empathy. To feel the other person cognitively, not right away emotionally. To check and make sure you understand the speaker and hear the details. And try to really listen and pay attention rather than figuring out what you're going to say next. And a lot of that has to, I hope that doesn't mean I'm over. We also talk a lot about paraphrasing. Not the annoying techniques that maybe you were taught for a while there, especially if you're in the corporate world, but what it means to say what you think you've heard. So we're going to take, what time is it? How long have we been?
It's 11. It's 11. Exactly 11.
Oh. All right. So you're going to take about just a little over 5 minutes. And if you can in groups of 3, we're going to do this listening exercise where, and I'll give you a couple of prompts, but someone's going to be the speaker. They're going to tell a story. It could be whatever moves you. Best vacation ever. Probably have to talk with Pastor Miller because he's fresh on that. A bad day at work. Project you're working on. Something funny happened at dinner. Why you chose your job profession. Anything. Someone's going to 2 minutes. So hopefully you all have phones or whatever at the time. Watches. Speaker tells a story. The listener is going to tell back what was said to him or her. The speaker gives listener feedback, and says, well, actually, or you forgot, and someone's going to observe and give the listener feedback. You can do it, trust me. This is just some practice, all right? So if you can do it in threes, or if you got a bigger group and you want 2 observers, this is just 5 minutes to give you a chance to not have to listen to me and just talk, okay? Everybody understand? A few phrases about their experience. Was the listener really a good listener? What was it like? Yeah.
I had very good listeners. They basically gave me back what I gave them. So it was a simple problem, but they understood. It was a moral question, and it was resolved.
So let me ask you, did they repeat what they heard you say, or were they offering you advice and suggestions on what you should do?
No, they were repeating what I said because the charge was to define it. Not to give me, it's like, I won't get started.
Because that often happens. Someone will come up and they'll say, well, if I were you, I would know. Like, no, you're listening. So, okay. Anything else? Awesome. I mean, I know that was rushed, but it was just a chance. So as you think of,
The one thing we had was a little embellishment to the story. In other words, put a little of the personality of the person into the story.
Interesting. Did you all hear that? Yeah. That happens too. And it's important to be aware of that. And there are different reasons why that might happen. But I cannot digress. Okay. So, different people manage conflict and having how to listen and having those difficult conversations in different ways. Knowing the strengths and weaknesses of how to respond to conflict helps us manage those difficult conversations more effectively. When responding to disagreement in the beginning stages, we usually respond from a place of calm. But when level of anxiety rises, we've got fight or flight. That's just in our nature. So as we think about that, one of the things in a full-day workshop that we do, and that if there's a group or if leadership is interested, I can do this with anyone, is the Cradle conflict style inventory. What's your default? Who? Jan? Jen.
Jean.
Jean. So that's the kind of listener I apparently am today. So Jean's all the way out there, right? So it'd be fun for you to think about as we go through this, what's your default style, if you were to do this inventory and everything, for responding to conflict. There's no right or wrong, there's no this, that, always this way, often depends on context, but understanding what your first reaction and way of responding to conflict is important. So, the first one, directing the shark. The shark has use of power and authority, gets things done, can be seen as insensitive, is competitive, forces others to accept his, her, their way, oblivious to needs or feelings of others, settles conflict by one person losing, fights to win at all costs. While you're talking, the shark is thinking of their next move. Now, the shark is useful in emergencies. The shark is useful when that toddler, you're running late and they won't, principles are at stake. Then we've got the cooperating, collaborating, the owl. Give and take, win-win, wise choice. Some people may see it as giving in. The owl confronts openly and fairly, is optimistic about conflict. We had some folks down there. Committed to their own and others' goals, begins discussions by acknowledging multiple points of view, persists until the solution satisfies everyone, comes to consensus, and speaks confidently and listens carefully. The owl is useful when long-term collaboration is needed, when you have time and energy to work toward the best solution, and this one I love because churches need to do this, when a creative outcome is important. So then we have the avoiding distancing, the turtle. The turtle gives in, backs off, doesn't care, head in the sand, withdraws, believes the resolution is hopeless, avoids people and issues that are conflicted, feels helpless to obtain goals, also doesn't cooperate with others in achieving their goals because just wants to avoid it, doesn't talk, doesn't listen. The turtle style is useful when the issue really is actually trivial, when a power differential exists that cannot be overcome. This is like bullet, so there's more to talk about each of these, and it's kind of hurting my stomach not to share everything that compromising, the fox, clever, flexible, holds all things in balance, level-headed.
He's a teddy bear.
Okay, wait a minute. That's what I mean, the teddy bear. Okay, wait a minute. Okay. The teddy bear, harmonizing, accommodating, big on relationships, cares about others, values connections, wavers on principles. We have a lot of beautiful teddy bears in the church because it's the church and you want everyone to feel good. You want people to come here and feel welcome and wanted. The teddy bears want others' acceptance. They're quick to accommodate others' needs at the cost of their own. They believe asking for their own needs will harm relationships. It's important. It's not so much that they think of I'm being selfish, what's the effect on the relationship. They make everything around sound like it's fine and agree with everything you say out loud to you. The teddy bear is useful when keeping others happy is really the identified priority. Plays a role in larger group conflict resolution if the person in this style doesn't care about the issue. Now, the compromise, the fox. Clever, flexible, holds all things in balance, level-headed, gives up some goals, but you have to give up some of yours. They're less optimistic about conflict, strengthening relationships, about conflict. Okay, slow down. They're less optimistic about conflict, strengthening relationships than the owl is. Diplomatic, but persuasive. When others are talking, the fox is trying to figure out compromise. And I love, when we're really digging into this, those who are in a relationship and talk about partners, it's like, okay, it's Friday night. You decided it's going to be a fun night. What are you going to do? And then you role play that conversation. It's usually hilarious. And you can pick out all the styles that are being used. The fox is useful when relationships and issues both matter, but time is of the essence. So if you looked at yourself on the chart, maybe you think, I'm probably this, and my spouse is this, and my neighbor is that. All well and good to be thinking about when we really know a lot about the styles. No style is right or wrong, but we need to know our default, the strengths and challenges of our default, and be able to recognize other styles so that when you're uncomfortable and someone's having a conversation with you, you can take advantage of knowing what their style is and how you can better communicate. We're almost there. So, listening and speaking with care. These are words that get thrown out a lot: aggressive, assertive, submissive. In a nutshell, it sometimes helps to think of this Venn diagram. If we're fully focused on others' needs, we're going to come from a place of submission. we're only focused on our own needs, or what we think, we're being aggressive. But when we take from each what we need to pay attention to, then we're what we call assertive. Oftentimes, the owl is that kind of assertive. Okay, we can take 2 minutes. So, as we go on digging deeper into this, and for many congregations have engaged in this because, while they don't have major blowing apart conflict, they do know that they're a group of human beings, and they want to move into the future with good health. And some are really digging in to get ready for calling the pastor, so that they know how they're communicating to and with each other, and how they will communicate when pastor does something that the other pastor never did before. I'm just saying that happens sometimes. So we talk about, in that long term, that collaboration, the owl. As an owl, you're acknowledging that each of you are coming with your own experience, your own perspective, and you'll be better able to collaborate and discover a win-win resolution when you understand the other's position. What's important in healthy communication and functioning is that idea of a win-win, because so often don't we feel like give or take, right? Okay, well, all right. I'm not talking about you guys. If we have to have one service instead of 2, I'll give in. But it has to be at this time. Everyone's throwing their chips in, right? Doesn't always create for consensus and people feeling, you know what? I was part of that, and it didn't turn out exactly the way I wanted, but I'm part of this, and I can understand how to make it happen. So one very, very quick example of that, I was assisting the director of LMPC in a mediation in a very large church. Part of that is these storytelling sessions where you have 6 people come together just to share what they've been experiencing. And then he would facilitate that, and I would write down these things on easel papers. And it was the 6 chairs, and a woman came walking into the room who was clearly beloved of this congregation. She was clearly the matriarch. Her chair was pulled over a little bit more. She was escorted to her chair. She was lovely. People loved her. But there had been some concern about what is wrong with Sunday school. There is no more kids, and what is wrong with these people, these young people. So everyone's sharing. And the last person was a younger woman who was new to the congregation. And she said, I don't really know why I'm here. It's just that I want to be a part of this congregation, and I figured I would come and share, say what I wanted to say. And she shared, and the matriarch, I still get goosebumps. She began to tear up, and she said, I have been seeing you young people who I don't see in church every week, and don't do this and don't do that is the problem. What is wrong with you? So soft on the issues became hard on the people, right? Or became hard on the people. But hearing you, I realized that raising a family today in this world is different than it was for me 50 years ago. And I think what I need to do is start listening to your experience and how I can help. And that changed the direction of everything at that congregation. So I won't, this is too much verbiage, but we talk about all the different stances that the inform me stance, the tell me more, not just give me the facts, ma'am, but tell me more, to really listen, active listening, So what you're saying is, but we practice not doing the annoying things. That self-revelation, we talk a lot, and let's just go right to it. So that's another story I'll tell another time. It's personal for me about my experience as director of Christian education with the beloved, beautiful, the Nativity Festival that we had forever. 200 kids in Sunday school, 100 youth in the whole thing, and it was quite something. And we needed to tone it down. And so in my trying to make some changes, one of the big things was, and I have permission to share this story, a wonderful woman in the congregation is a photographer. And the costumes of this, I would have to say, rivaled Broadway. And that's not the actual lambs. And that's not me, although I kind of wish it was, just so I started, okay, we're not gonna have this cast of thousands, we're not gonna have, that's something maybe we don't need. And then I started hearing out there, Deacon Natalie hates Christmas. She doesn't care if kids learn about the story of baby Jesus. So you can see how, right? And I was like, gosh, I kind of thought everybody liked me. So, in talking, I asked if I could sit down and spend some time with the photographer. And she's a mother, had kids in it. And by this point, they were just about grown and gone. And in listening to each other, what I learned, what she was saying, I don't really know how to be active in my faith. I wasn't really that much church before I came here, but my gift of photography is what I'm giving to this ministry. And she heard me saying, it was very hurtful to hear this topic out there being discussed without invitation for me to be included. And I will say that was one of the most powerful conversations I have ever had. And the beauty and the transformation and the growth that came out of it still ripples in that community today. So this is why these things are important. But what we learned as we were going through this is how important I and you messages are. Because those you messages, they result in the other person feeling blamed and therefore feeling the need to defend against what you have said. And that's how I felt at first. I was like, hey, here's what I do and here's what I know, and that was all I was focusing on. I wasn't focusing on community, I was focusing on me and blaming you. So we avoid blame by using I messages, owning our feelings, feelings of the speaker, the objectionable behavior, consequences of how it made me feel, and the good I messages have both feelings and information, so that I feel. If I'm ever helping facilitate a conversation between or among some people, I'm often going, I feel, I, just kind of a reminder, because it's hard. It's hard, especially in our society. We're taught to get out there and fight, So we would do this, we're not going to do this today, but we may find time to do this, of using these skills as your new pastor, you're getting ready to call your new pastor. And this will be a little bit in that ministry site profile workshop. Let's talk about to air out, get out there. What are the congregation's expectations for the congregation and for the pastor? And then what are the pastor's expectations for the congregation, for him, her, their self? Because a lot of times, that ministry site profile, the candidate sees it like, oh, okay, and they get here, and that's not who the congregation is. That's not where their gifts lie. So we don't want that to happen. So that's something we'll do, try to incorporate. after the CAT, we'll look at different ways of, how we view who the pastor is and expectations. But, okay, so where do we go from here? I hope you gained enough, oh, that's what that's all about, to maybe want to do more. I'll schedule anything if people want to have some more conversations, and it never hurts to have a group of people who are well-trained in healthy communication to spread the health into the family system. You become like shepherds for listening and speaking with care. The next thing, Thursday night, this Thursday, October 28th, at 6:30 p.m., there will be a Zoom. You'll receive that link. I believe it's going to go on Tuesday, where Pastor Sarah Anderson, Associate to the Bishop, responsible for transition ministry in the Synod, and trained by Holy Cow Consulting to do the interpretation of congregation assessment tools. She is going to share the results and the interpretation of those results on the Zoom. Everyone is invited to attend. Council and transition team are expected to attend, and give yourself, have dinner and stuff ahead of time, because it's usually an hour and a half. Is the opportunity, you're going to really work on your listening skills, because she has a lot of information to share, and very good explanatory narrative, makes connections, and so have a pad and pencil, take notes, questions, because I'm trained to support the interpretation that she does. So I can answer more questions, we can have conversations. It will be recorded, because it's going to be really important to remember some things as you work on the ministry site profile and as your new pastor arrives, so they know, okay, this is who St. Paul is. This is what they say, how they feel God calling them into God's future. So it's something you can always go back and refer to. You'll have access to it. Any questions about that?
And Natalie, you did say it would be recorded, so if we couldn't watch it at that time, we could see it another time?
Yes, it would probably be best. It's not going to be on a YouTube channel or anything. It's going to be, I think it's in a special Dropbox the Synod has, and so we get access to that Dropbox. So it's usually, okay, people want to watch it, so let's get people together at this time. It's not kind of just out there like your typical videos. I'll double check on that, I'm not sure. But yes, we will have, if you cannot do it Thursday night and you want to listen to it, I will make sure you can listen to it. Pastor?
If anybody in this room is like I am, if we don't know how to do Zoom, what should we do?
Okay, so a couple of options.
Or maybe everybody does, and that's the other question. So.
No, because that actually came up in our transition team meeting, that even sometimes people will log on, they can log on, but then they're having trouble with their, mic and all that kind of stuff. Which I am meeting with Pastor Sarah Tuesday to make sure tech, how that's working, what I'm responsible for, everybody you, and as wonderful as it is hearing your husband, whatever, I'm going to shut all that off. And so if you do not do Zoom, I can't be there, but I'm going to talk with the transition team, perhaps someone, because you could hook up. It would be fantastic, is if you could hook up and have it on here if you wanted to group TV here to watch it all together. So if maybe I could do that. Let me see. I could probably do that from here. And then if people don't want to do it at home, they can watch it from here. They can also reach out to me or any of the transition team members for a quick coaching, or maybe someone, if you're comfortable with your COVID bubbles or whatever, to go to someone's house where someone would be watching it. Is that helpful?
It is, and I have one other, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's good.
But if somebody doesn't get the Zoom link, I'm assuming everybody does, but if there's somebody somehow, for some reason, it's not included, they should call Kim when?
Yes, they should call Kim by, I would say, noon on Thursday. First, yeah, because we're sending it Tuesday. So actually, if you don't get it by Tuesday evening, start calling Kim, because I know some, St. Paul uses Constant Contact, and that's got this weird bug that sometimes it just de-subscribes people on its own. So sometimes if you all of a sudden go, you know, I didn't get e-news, and that's the only thing I like to do on Thursdays. So you need to let Kim know, and she needs to get you back in. So yeah, so if you don't, I'm going to say, if you don't get the link by Tuesday evening, call Kim Wednesday morning. Yes, Carol.
I'd just like to clarify what you said, is that this is, we'll be getting information that night, and that we will have an opportunity in the future to ask questions about it. So the whole idea about writing down your questions as you're listening is very important. And while they won't be answered Thursday night, we will have a group meeting where we can ask those questions and get answers.
And, you know, certain clarifying questions. She'll open it up for some questions, but she won't get into discussion and dialogue that you all need to be having together. If there's a specific question about, wait a minute, what do you mean we're in that quadrant that says we're hard from home or whatever, she'll get that, you know. But she has a lot to share, so first we listen. Anything else? Yeah.
I think if you explain, like there's some people here that have never done Zoom, but you just, it's an email, you click on the link, and you're right there, correct?
Yeah, you have to download. I'm going to talk with transition team about if we should send out, I'm sure I have in my files back from when I was under call and all of a sudden had to learn how to do worship on Zoom, the simple way of this is what you do and do this ahead of time kind of thing. But then I think I'm really going to consider, I think maybe I'll come here Thursday evening and log and connect to the screen so that the only problem is someone's going to have to help me with sound because I have to be able to hear Pastor Sarah.
So,
Yeah.
Can you find out if there are people who are going to be coming here now?
Anybody think they might? Got a couple of you? Okay, that will be determined by Tuesday. By Tuesday, you will know if I'm coming here, what time to be here, or we'll have other things to do if you don't do Zoom. And I will show it on another day for those that something happened and they couldn't do it or whatever. Right? Well, yes.
What time was that again on Thursday?
6:30 p.m. Yep. All right. So I want to say thank you. I know it was rushed. I'm sorry, but I did. Did I make it?
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. I do appreciate your time. It's a gorgeous day. Blessings on your day, and you'll hear from transition about everything on Tuesday about the Zoom. Okay. Thank you.